All right.
So thank you all for joining us tonight for our Green Coffee Talk event. We've had an event each night of our 4-day Green Gifts Fair event. My name is Amy Foltz, and I'm the Executive Director of Dewi Green Minnesota. We're a nonprofit organization that's been around for, we're on our 20th year, educating Minnesotans and people in the Twin Cities about reducing their environmental impact on the environment. And we often try to focus on what's easy, what's fun, and focus on teaching people where they're at in their journey in green living. So right now you guys are looking at some slides. There was a mural project with a partnership between Do It Green Minnesota and the Family of Trees and the Midtown Global Market. And these murals were going to be hung at the Midtown Global Market during some of our fair events, but due to COVID guidelines changing right before the fair started, we instead are going to be making a video that will be launched on our YouTube page, and we'll highlight all of the youth's amazing artwork. So all of the Coffee Talk events are sponsored by UW River Falls Online Sustainable Management Program. They've been our sponsor for this series. And our event tonight is titled Breaking Down the Walls of Environmental Apartheid. And we are blessed to have 3 panelists here with us from the Family of Trees organization. And do you guys each want to quickly just introduce yourself and what your role is with Family of Trees?
Yeah, I can go first. Hi, my name's Divine, Islam. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay. My name's Divine. I am a longtime Northsider, been here for over 10 plus years. But I graduated from St. Catherine University with my degree in business in 2019. But I've lived in this community all my life, and I care for it deeply. Currently, I'm serving as an AmeriCorps member with the Family of Trees in their forestry department. And so I'm doing a lot of outreach, connecting with the community. We planted over 50 trees on the 17th of October, just trying to rebuild the tree canopy in North Minneapolis. So it's been great to work alongside such great women and men. And I've really enjoyed myself thus far. But like I said, I've been here a long time, and I really enjoy working with the youth in this community to make it a better place.
Awesome. Thank you, Divine.
Anita, you want to go next?
I'd like to introduce myself in Dakota language. Hamdakuyapi. That means hello, my relatives. Amp-o-wichakpiwi imakiapiye. My people call me Morningstar Woman. I am an educator in humanities grades 5 through 12, and I also teach Dakota language. And for the past since 2012, I have been passionate about environmental issues, food justice, and letting people know that in our language, in our Dakota language, it's very spiritual, and it has reference to our connection to the land, and also the wealth of plant medicines. And we're going to be talking about the issues between cultures that become lost in our modern age, where we need manicured lawns and examples like that. But with Family of Trees, I particularly have a passion for it because many folks don't know. Well, they do not know what each type of tree is and its value, what fruit it bears, its value for our nutrition, and also its scientific name, common name, indigenous name, and all of those relationships. So I have been doing some intensive grant writing for Family of Trees, and hopefully, we will further our environmental justice this way. Pidamiya, thank you.
My name is Anali Schleger dos Santos. I work full-time with Minnesota Interfaith Power and Light as the Environmental Justice Youth Program Coordinator. I run a youth program that I designed called Youth in Power, and some of my girls are on this call, so I'm super excited. We're in our second year, essentially doing environmental justice and community organizing training for young folks. And I have been with the Family of Trees more or less since the onset. This is our first year. My mom, Erica, is also in here, and she has been with the Family of Trees since its inception, and invited me to join in months and months ago before COVID struck. But I am on the leadership team and board for the Family of Trees, and it's been a joy and a pleasure to be working on reforesting North Minneapolis and beyond. So yeah, thank you all for being here.
Awesome. Thank you all for introducing yourself and taking the time to be here to share your wisdom with everyone who's here. I've mostly had conversations with Analia, and I am just so impressed with your organization and your commitment to helping not only within your community, but also being willing to be here like a day today and share your ideas and wisdom and have this discussion with all of us in the community. So thank you for being here, and we're gonna get right to it because we have a lot of great, amazing questions to get through here. So I'm gonna ask each question that the panel has written and provided to me, and then they will each answer the question, and then we'll move on to the next one. So if you have some questions you'd like to ask during the presentation, you can use the chat at the bottom of your page, and we'll get to those at the very end. We'll leave 10 minutes for Q&A. I just ask that you consider being respectful and kind in how you're presenting your questions to our panel. So we're just gonna start our first question. You introduced yourselves, but how is the work that you do, how does that impact you around the topic of environmental justice? And what does it mean to you personally? So Analia, you're going first.
Okay, so environmental justice means many, many things. There is no one definition, there is no one sentence to answer. I usually start, I do a environmental justice, sorry for all the ums today. I'm like, already, I do an environmental justice seminar pretty much. And I usually start with the EPA's definition, and it's funny because the Environmental Protection Agency doesn't do all that they can to protect the environment, but they have a pretty solid definition. It just invites a lot of space for nuance. So the EPA defines environmental justice as the fair treatment and meaningful involvement of all people, regardless of race, color, national origin, or income, with respect to the development, implementation, and enforcement of environmental laws, regulations, and policies. It will be achieved when everyone enjoys the same degree of protection from environmental and health hazards and equal access to the decision-making process in order to have a healthy environment in which to live, work, and learn. So because environmental justice is so many different things, it is gender justice, racial justice, social justice, food justice and sovereignty, migrant justice. It kind of seems like an untacklable mountain for anyone who may consider themselves outside the environmental realm. I know that it definitely made me feel like that. When I first came in, I have a communications and public relations background. So at first I was like, okay, environmental stuff is not my realm. I'm not a scientist. But so I operated from that fear-based perspective, where the reality is that environmental justice is so many different things for so many people, but it has to kind of be everything. So I think of environmental justice as a myriad of things and ideas and creations, and it requires a lot of faith in humanity to begin with. But it essentially looks like a world which is very much a potential, and it's within reach for us, where people are taken care of and the earth is taken care of as well. So there would be no more speculation about whether or not we are in a state of crisis, which we are. So even calling it, climate change or global warming is not, it doesn't suffice as well anymore, because we are actually in a state of crisis, and that's what it needs to be named as. So there would be no more speculation about whether or not we are in a state of crisis. There would be true and honest accountability from large corporations as to the impacts of their actions and their decisions. There will be a connection to, or folks would do all that they can with the skills that they have, and the connection to themselves and to the community in order to ensure that there will be a world in which to live and thrive in for the next 7 generations to come. So, Anita or Divine?
Yes, thank you, Amelia, for setting a precedence for, a nice definition of environmental justice and what it looks like. And we've, in spite of the COVID dilemma, we have been working very diligently hard on developing a mission and developing a lot of programming and getting the funding for following the 4 R's: regeneration, reparations, reconciliation, and restoration. And we will be talking about restoration in the end as far as what can be done. And so we've been working hard also on finding a distinction from the BIPOC communities that in conjunction with the mainstream community, there's been a lot of clashes, a lot of going back and forth about how we go forward in environmental justice and its impacts in every sector. So we're on a very basic outlook. We're looking at what we've done so far as growing healthy organic gardens on the north side, and we're talking about doing a very well distribution and harvesting at the end to make sure everyone, a lot of families get fed, and we're brainstorming ways of how they can change their eating habits. It's very hard, with all of the commercial food, but that's something that really needs to be worked on. And we can break down these roadblocks, in a lot of inviting activities that we can provide. And so one of the things that I'm an older adult, so I haven't been able to join the learning pod teams as much, but they're learning STEM, experiential learning, with testing soil, with concepts of renewable energy, and also with the tree planting, tree identification, and that sort of thing. So I think that why we should care and what does it look like is all of those things wound up, for our health. So thank you.
Thank you, Anita. Divine, you want to share?
Yeah, I think Cornelia hit it right on the head. It's about equality. It's about fairness. I'm just gonna read a few quotes from the Minnesota Center for Environmental Advocacy. So Black Minnesotans have 2.25 times the cancer risk as the average person in Minnesota. Among those who are under the age of 65, the asthma death rate for Black Minnesotans was 6 times higher than it was for white Minnesotans. 150,000 Minnesotans drink polluted groundwater, and 40% of Minnesota's waters are impaired. So I think it's very clear, the disparities that exist among us, and it's not okay. And that's really all there is to it. And I feel like environmental justice is a way for all of us to have access to clean water, food, and land, period. No matter where you live or where you're from, or what the color of your skin is.
Thank you. So I'm going to ask the next question provided by the panel. What are the major disparities between local Minneapolis cities and suburbs around food deserts, health hazards such as waste storage, water quality, and tree canopies, and how are they being addressed?
So I can start. So first and foremost, it is imperative that folks understand that in the state of Minnesota, where most of us are right now, there exists some of the worst economic, racial, and employment disparities between Black and white citizens, with North Minneapolis, which is where we focus our work, being a concentrated area with a large majority of residents of color and classified working poor. So that means that the space that most of us that are, well, pretty much everyone in the family of trees either has grown up in North Minneapolis or has spent a majority of our life there. So it is our community that we're seeing experience these effects. So what all of that means is that the space that our group works in and where most of us have grown up is already considered underserved. So with that being the demographic and the current reality of where we live and work, the fact that it's an underserved community and that has encountered generations of environmental injustice and present apartheid in a number of ways. The old understanding of what goes on here kind of looked like an understanding, and it's a false understanding that people of color and that people that live here are putting environment on the back burner. And that in itself is a disparity because it's not the case. Enough people, or there's just a lot of people that don't understand that the environment is more than the air we breathe and the soil we stand on. But many folks that I've known have either lived or grown up in North Minneapolis. They have experienced asthma, they themselves have, or their families have, or their friends have asthma. And it's kind of like if the majority of folks that live here are a part of an underserved community that tends to look like people of color mostly, or people that are not wealthy, it's an environmental injustice. So it's looking like people have had to get used to a lack of access to fresh, affordable, healthy food options. a tree canopy, you know, like it may not seem like a tree canopy is a deal breaker, but when 5 minutes away in the suburbs where I went to school, it's significantly cooler, and you look around and there just happens to be more of a tree canopy, you can start to put two and two together. And then you put that together with like bad water quality, more companies polluting there and putting pollution hotspots and building highways right under our noses. That moves out of the sector of a social issue or purely a social issue, and thus becomes an environmental issue. So I think more people do need to understand that the environment is, like I said, not just things we can touch. It is, you know, like lack of access. It's all of these things that we're experiencing, and police brutality is a part of people's environment as well. You know, food, not having the right food, or only having, you know, a corner store to get the things that you need. And if you need to go elsewhere, you have to drive there. That means you have to have a car, or, you know, access to transportation, or so there's a lot of people that are kind of brushed under the rug. And then there is an assumption that because they are brushed under the rug and therefore not at the table to discuss the things that we are experiencing, that the environment is not on the forefront of our mind. So we are addressing them one thing at a time, and there's a lot of things that need to be addressed where we can, while increasing access to knowledge, which is one of the most basic steps to entering into this movement. So increasing access to knowledge and true understanding and community support so that these disparities can be lessened from the ground up and from policy level down, are exactly how we're working on that.
Thank you. That answered a lot, I think, with that question. Do we want all of the panel members to answer that one, or do you guys want to move to question 3?
Are you guys cool if we move to question 3?
Yeah, I think that was very well said.
Yes.
Okay, Anita, do you want to start with question 3? This question provided by the panel was, if you had unlimited resources, what would you do to improve or enhance environmental conditions, and where would you start?
Okay, I am from the indigenous community, and throughout the world, a lot of native North American indigenous philosophy is thought of throughout the world, and we value our monetary, the monetary value system is not one that we follow, and one that we follow is how well we are good relatives to each other. And so our interconnectedness of economic and environmental justice is just that. And I have witnessed on the north side of Minneapolis where community has been stronger than that dollar. I mean, they were able to come up with a lot of plants, organically started plants, and condition the soil organically and feed a lot of people. Start a lot of gardens, take youth and gather them each morning and 10 gardens and have quite big harvests. And so they were also able to bring their bounty to the food lines. So everyone was able to have an organic lunch, at these various places. And so I just think that that value system, can reverberate throughout with changing our relationship between, say to have civic engagement, and then through education and that sort of thing, where it's all interconnected to solve, what is needed you know, to lessen our carbon footprint, to really let corporate entities know that they failed us, you know, in that sort of way with their constant wanting to use resources that we are running out of, and our individual responsibility. You know, it's not how much money we make, it's how much we're going to give of ourselves, you know, in our work. So in the work that we do, I think we're going to see an impact on saving this planet. I really do. It's on its way. I mean, we've done so much preparation so far, so we need a lot more to do. So thank you.
Thank you, Anita. Yeah, learning to grow food and growing food is such an important skill. I think so many of us have lost. Divine, did you want to add or contribute? If you had unlimited resources, what would you do to improve our environmental conditions? Start.
Yeah, I feel like growing food is mandatory. Every child in North Minneapolis should know how to do that, whether they like it or not. Like, no, but I'm kidding. I'm serious, but I'm kidding. Yeah, I would really instill some paid training for all youth in the fields of soil biology, which is the true aspect, I believe, that can attack climate change at a faster rate than some of our other approaches. But I would really invest in young people. I feel like they're the future, literally. So if we can do as many things as possible that teach them how to take care of our planet, I think that's a great place to start.
And I'm just going to follow up with that. And yeah, we have a pretty solid, we're working on a solid model of apprenticeship. That's what we're doing here. It's really, really important that we uplift and support young folks so that, you know, what I like to tell the kids in my youth program is that if we instill these skills and techniques and understandings in you now, then hopefully we won't have to restructure society again, which is pretty much what we're doing, what we're needing to do, because our society does not really make a space right now for everyone to participate in environmental justice and achieving that. I would use resources like, at first it was gonna just be, our question was just gonna be if you had unlimited money, but time is also a resource. So if you had unlimited time and resources, I would probably host training sessions around community organizing to begin with environmental justice awareness in meeting folks where they're at as a fundamental lesson. I think this is super necessary because one of the biggest barriers to entering into this movement that I've found is A, accessibility, but B, like understanding and feeling like it's a space where you can join into this conversation regardless of where you're coming from. So I'd like to use that to spread out what we do as far as environmental education, because it's not a possibility for most folks to attend college or higher education or, you know, formal training around what our community needs until the community is like begging to for all of us to just know what to do because we're a part of the community. So I'd probably make it more accessible and understandable for folks so that they can understand what it means to be a part of a movement that takes care of folks, and to understand like food sovereignty and regenerative systems, as well as permaculture training for everyone, which reminds me that there is official permaculture design training with the Sierra Leone Foundation for New Democracy. So everyone should look that up and get involved with that.
Awesome. Yeah, those are great internships and apprenticeships, and inviting youth to participate and be a part of the conversation table seems so important in all of those areas. We're going to go on to the next question. What role has colonization played in the creation and historical continuation of environmental apartheid? Anila, you want to go first?
Yeah, is that okay, Anita?
Yes, I will.
Okay.
Well, I have known my history, my family history, and where I originally came from was Ia Oslaha, and Dakota, that means standing rock. And, you know, it's been the center of the oil Keystone Line, and there has been spills, and there's been genocide during the protests, and there's books being written about it as we speak. But what I'm getting at is our outlook on the environment is much different than what corporate agriculture has in mind. And they placed our people on so-called barren land, and they actually call it the Badlands. But it's a rather large reservation, so there's a lot of grazing land. If you go to Standing Rock, you breathe the air, it's pure. You see the water, it's pristine. And herds of buffalo have come back. So how are we going to stop corporations from reversing that? They're already trying to do that in Alaska. So those relationships are in desperate need of mending, you know, and being able to cultivate the land and leave it in its pristine state. And so another form of environmental genocide is that we've been told as people of color, American Indians, that we don't know enough scientifically, that our views are rudimentary and irrelevant to scientific theory. But if you get to know indigenous people, if you get to know Afrocentric people, they will give you an education that you've never heard before. As for instance, in indigenous cultures in Ojibwe and Dakota, we have phylum, we have family and type, and you know, we say it in our own language. And we also know, like I was telling these young women, that there's a culture of knowing, because they just know. They're taught from the time they're small, very small. And they know that they shouldn't, in some places, you shouldn't bury your dead in the ground, because it's if it's a layer where there's petroleum and gas, it's dangerous to even dig there, you know. So that's why you see a lot of the burial up on scaffolding for that reason. And so there's just a way of knowing that from a Eurocentric eye, they're saying, oh, these people are really, they're savage, they're uneducated, they're this and that. But actually their language is as complex as Hebrew or Arabic. And everything in our language has a lesson in it about spirituality, about our reverence and our connection to the earth and to the environment and to all the living things that are around us. So that sort of outlook, I really take a lot of pride, because I was able to, this past year before COVID, I was able to teach Dakota history to all our children. And I use the language, I use the real history, the real meanings behind everything. And I think that's some of the things that we need to go ahead with for our children and their education. So I think I'll land the plane before I take up everybody's time.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Divine.
Yeah, I think that, colonization is thinking about exploitation. It's thinking about how can I use you, not how can I take care of the land. So we have to go backwards and almost rebuild that relationship, because from the beginning it's been about exploitation. And so the people with the wisdom, as to Anita's point, they've been kind of put to the side. And so we need to go back to, and you can see it now. People are going back to what people were doing hundreds and hundreds of years ago. Because the fake fixes, the things that we think we knew and the things that we thought were going to help are not helping. Because you ignored the people that had a legitimate opinion. Because they've been here. They know. They know that weed is specifically used for eczema, or that tea is specifically for respiratory health. So we have to go back to the land, and we have to go back to the people who speak to the land, who understand, and talk to them and use them as resources, as opposed to looking at them as enemies or like they have a lack of value. So that's where I think we need to go. We need to go backwards to move forwards. That makes sense.
So I tend to look at this question by asking what role do communities of color play in the environmental justice realm? And for me, as a person of color, still new to this movement, I am not gonna lie that I did have this understanding that environmental stuff was for white people before joining into it. My wonderful mother actually erased me in this movement. She's writing in the chat about apprenticeship of wisdom tradition. But what this looks like nowadays is that, well, we're talking about the future, which is why we do what we do, especially around environmental justice. We're planning for the future, and we're planning for the next 7 generations and beyond. So the question is, who gets to have access? And that tends to be the reoccurring question: who gets the access to the green economy and its benefits? Because when we talk about what the future of the environment looks like, we'd love for it to look like a green economy, everyone has a Tesla, solar panels are everywhere, but who actually gets to access that? If I can't afford a Tesla yet, if I can't afford a Tesla, does that mean I just don't get to participate in that? If I can't subscribe to a solar installation, do I not get to participate in that, even though we all are living here at the same time? Because we are in what Anita called earlier, we are in a culture of awareness. Because we're in that culture of awareness, the fact that many Black and Indigenous people of color have for generations now been held back as far as awareness goes. We talk about all the other ways that we've been held back for generations. Awareness is vital to that, to add to that. That plays a big part in the way that things have come to be. So we've been put into sections of land and told to live a certain way, and then we have to deal with the worst of the repercussions environmentally, only to have big corporations and those in power, who, as we know, is not comprised of diverse individuals or folks that look and have lived like us. These things invalidate the wants, or these corporations invalidate the wants and needs of people, and they make decisions that go against the idea that every person is deserving of innate human rights and consideration. And And so, you know, examples of the Dakota Access Pipeline and Line 3 and the Upper Harbor Terminal, we've watched the community actively say we're not here for this because it will affect us in an adverse way. And we still watch those in power say, okay, we hear you, but we're still gonna make this decision behind closed doors because these people pay us. So when we talk about apartheid, which is division continued, because colonization was the foundation of this society here, and white supremacy and control and the false images of power and wealth are so ingrained in our society, there are a lot of things that need to change. And so it seems like I said earlier, a mountain that we can't really tackle. It's sad that only now in the last few decades, people are trying to get back to our natural instinct of working with the land and with each other. Colonization around environment looks like a space where only white, wealthy, educated white groups are claimed to be conscious and therefore are asked to shape a future for themselves. So we ask ourselves, who is going to be the change when the change deeply affects folks who aren't usually at the table, let alone considered? So this has to be a conversation that's not only open to bringing all perspectives in, but it has to be actively anti-racist, anti-fascist, equitable, and diverse where race, class, gender, and age are considered, as well as an intersectional movement. So that really means like people bringing their different perspectives and different skills to the table as well. But the solution for colonization and colonialism is transformative justice, which is where we, the people that do not benefit from the existing systems that have been put in place by colonization and apartheid, we, the people, will seek transformative change, which is deep structural shift towards a just transition. And we'll move away from the old patterns of colonization by and towards indigenous practices and truly caring for the land and the people that live here.
Wow. I was trying to type in some of those really important things and I couldn't because it was all of it. I think you should write a book. All of you. Thank you. Are you all okay if we move to the next panel question? How are all relations fundamental to collaborative problem solving, especially around environmental justice?
Anita or Divine, you want to go first?
I can go first. I truly believe that relationships are fundamental to our survival. And building relationships is essential to our growth as a cooperative, as a community, as a human race. And we need to work together, not only because it's more efficient, but to learn and teach one another along the way. We need to stop being so individualistic. That's what got us here in the first place. So we have to rethink our thinking and look beneath us, because I actually think that the soil is the quickest way to attack climate change. And it's funny to me too, because soil seems so beneath us. But through some of the research that I'm doing, and I'm doing it with Erica, who's here, it's transformative. And so not only do we need to build relationships amongst each other, but we need to tap into our relationship with the land, as to what I was talking about earlier. But it's, you know, we have 1 million nonprofits in Minnesota. I mean, a gazillion. And it's amazing how we're doing all these different things, yet we are doing the same things. So there needs to be some cooperative coming together as far as using our resources, our time, and our energy to push forth the same energy forward together. And hey Layla. And I feel like right now we're kind of just scattered, but we have relationships and they're there. They just need to be grouped. And still figuring that out is going to be a challenge because it feels like it's never been done to this scale before. But I think that it's totally possible. But that's how I feel on this question is we really just have to take all these things we already have and just connect the dots slowly, one by one.
So I just wanted to say a last thing that I feel is very important to our mission of regeneration and like Divine said, you know, restoring the micro and macro organisms in the soil. I know over the years when I at one time I had 4 large gardens, and reconditioning the soil back, you know, away from all the pesticides, chemicals, and things that were in the ground that cause us such harm. One of my dogs died from huge tumors underneath her belly from the Roundup that my neighbor was using on his to make his lawn perfect. And I think we won some battles there, but we need to keep winning them. And the reparation piece, how are we going to give versus, you know, take and keep taking and keep taking? And the wisdom traditions, there's wisdom traditions in every culture. And I think we need to think those out instead of making it left and right wing politics. You know, it's just that's stalling us from really digging in to solve ways to save our planet. And I have been studying for a good part of my life, my culture, my language, and I want to give this to the next generation. And I also, you know, especially my Black Native students that are mixed, they've been really left out of the loop because they weren't given, I mean, they didn't think it was important to teach them their Native heritage that they had also. And I did this one project where we took narratives and stories from slavery, the slavery era, and brought them to life with our children. And it was a literacy piece. And so a lot of these things I think we need to bring out the identity strength that we have. And with that, I will pass it to somebody else to close.
I like the question that you put in the chat, Amy. How can we share our wisdom and collaborate between all cultures and organizations to be the most effective? I like that. I really think that everyone should get acquainted with that that particular question, because it's one that we can have answers to, but I'm finding over and over again is like there's always nuance to something. So it's a constant learning process, how we can do these things when things are always shifting and people are, you know, things are affecting people in different ways. It's a never ending morphing thing that we need to answer. But I typically think about relations as necessary, because we are fundamentally creatures that require being in relation and collaboration, even though most people don't think that way, or maybe are not focused on that, or it's not in the forefront of their mind. But we are also creatures of comfort, and that being the case, it's hard for a lot of folks to feel like there is truly a safe, uplifting space in which to actually make thorough solutions come to fruition. And And so people are often left out feeling like, it's, it makes me uncomfortable, or I don't know, or because I'm an individual, what can I really do to make change happen? But it has to look like us uplifting and supporting each other wherever and whenever we can. We've gotten super far away from relating to the earth now that, so that now people have to really like dedicate and be super intentional about relating to the earth or grounding themselves, and relating to one another. So it's hard for a lot of people that are in power and that are not working in an activism or an activist environment or a movement like this one, the environmental justice movement, to imagine a manner of functioning that's greater than the individual. So it kind of seems like we can't really attain that necessarily because there are so many people that have sway and that have money and power, that don't make it a normal conversation or something that is normalized, that people would like talk to their neighbors or do things that would benefit other people outside of, themselves and their home. So this is a function that is greater than the individual, but it's like ingrained in our DNA. So we, as COVID has taught us all, we need to get good at staying connected. And for those of us that maybe feel like connections or communication or relation is not what we're here for, our planet has told us that we don't really have much of an option to do anything differently, because we're hurtling towards a point of no return. So if we happen to get, if we got to working closer with our individual needs and how our individual needs match those of the people around us, that look like being safe, secure, loved, and nourished. It also closely ties in with the health and well-being of our community. So more people need to realize that, and that kind of comes from top down, but also from the bottom up. So if we normalize this conversation and we focus on the well-being of our community, we would be moving closer to a reality where everyone is taken care of truly, where we would all have clean air to breathe and clean water to drink and healthy and nutritious food, and people were able to grow their own food and take their own health and the well-being of their community into their own hands, in a space where racial and social justice is not something that we have to go out of our way to learn about, that it would be something we see that's lived all around us in policy and in practice, and in the encouragement of working in true relation to our planet, and to those that protect our planet. We would be moving into, I'd say, a divinely protected reality. So we're moving there, just takes a little bit of time.
I think Mother Earth is fighting back and taking what she wants. I mean, it can sound a little bit harsh, but people have commented that the skies are clearer and the animals are coming out from everywhere and things like that. So with that, I'd like to say a closing greeting in Dakota. Itakoya Owasi. Damiaya.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. So we have a few minutes left if anyone wants to plug in a question. Otherwise, I'd like to throw one out there, which is, how can we continue to have conversations like these? Can we continue to have more Zoom events like this or a series? Can you share some resources if people want to get involved? What are some organizations, or where are some places to start to learn how people can get involved? Does anyone want to share, let's just say someone is just getting started, how can they get involved with environmental justice in the Twin Cities?
So because this is, it's not a hard space to enter into, but it kind of seems like this big movement that everyone's like been involved with for decades. And I'm new to this. So this movement meets you where you're at. So I would say my first suggestion would be kind of making a map of your skills and the things that you do feel comfortable with. Maybe comparing that with things that you don't feel as comfortable with, or things that you feel like would take more time or more energy, and then set those as a goal of things that you want to work towards. But because this is what we like to call an intersectional movement, we really do, those of us in the environmental justice realm, we do love to see people join in and say, where do I start? So the first thing that I would say would be, map out what you feel comfortable with, what you can join into, and do a little research as to what's going on in your community. And then the other biggest step that kind of goes in with this last question of the fact that relationships and community building is so fundamental. Talk to the people you know and be like, who knows about this thing, or, who has this opportunity, or like, what can I do? Start with volunteering, but put yourself in a place where you maybe don't see all your friends in the same place. And it may seem like I joined into this movement by going out on a limb and taking an off-campus program when I was in college. And my friends were like, why are you doing this random environmental program? And I haven't looked back since. So start where you're at and then figure out where you can go, and recognize what you would like to see in your community, and the resources are there. But it can be as easy as planting a tree. They used to call us tree huggers. So going in that direction, let's just get back to that need to be a tree hugger, and start a garden, do something that kind of forces you to get out of your comfort zone.
Well, we can eliminate that tree hugger and say trees are the answer. Because my husband works for the Minneapolis Park Board. He takes care of the trees throughout the city, and he has that bumper sticker. But somebody had mentioned that the youth are, at the gift there, they're getting trees. And we've already joined the Minneapolis Park Board with art organizations, because a lot of them are experienced foresters, seasoned foresters, and have a lot of information, that a wealth of information. And so about caring for trees, what you do after you plant, and things like that. So we can organize a lot of that.
Yeah, I love that idea of just connecting with your own community and having those conversations on what your community needs and how can you work together to get those needs met. Divine, do you have some resources or ideas that you want to share?
Very similar to Analia, just get out there. I got into it after the tornado hit North Minneapolis in 2011. I said, I need a job. I want to make some money. So, I being the age that I was, I couldn't work everywhere. But given the circumstances, I was allowed to plant food and beautify the community. And so from there, I stuck with it. You take a look at your community and you see the things that are wrong, and you see the things that you could potentially change. And so your perspective starts to change. And like she said, the resources are there. You just have to find them. So it will find you in due time. Just keep searching, keep looking, and staying around people that have similar values to you.
I think we should keep our eye on what's going to happen with the Green New Deal, because that's going to be huge, I think.
Great. Well, so many important questions answered. I know there's so much more to say, and I hope that we can set up more of these discussions so we can get through more important conversations. Another resource would just be our website, which is doitgreen.org. We have a lot of local people that have contributed ideas and resources and articles, and you can search by topic on our website. But yeah, there are so many different organizations working on environmental issues all over the metro and Minnesota and all over the United States. So find one in your area and just start volunteering and get connected, and you'll find the right path for yourself if you're looking for more to do. Not everybody is. I know some of us are already with no time because we're so busy with everything in our communities, but thank you all for all that you do already, and for sharing some resources, and all of our presenters for sharing your wisdom and ideas and this conversation. So we hope to have you back.
Thanks to everybody.
Thank you. And you can look on our website or Family of Trees for any future events that might be in collaboration together. So
Lisa actually has one thing to add before we go.
oh yeah. Are you muted? Can you guys hear her? Yep, you're muted. Do you want to unmute, Elisa? There you go.
Oh, I can't hear you. Well, I'm just gonna go ahead and read what she said. So for the Green Gifts Fair specifically, if you are in Minneapolis or in Minnesota, we are giving away pre-potted baby trees that need shelter for the winter. So if you have some space in your backyard or just some space and wherever you live, you can click on the link. It's in the chat here. We've got like 65, Mom? Like 65 trees, I think.
60 white spruce and 60 white oak and red oak that are all sleeping, but they're all babies. And so they want to wake up in their new home and spread their roots and their branches and know where they're going to be. So reforest, take as many as you can give a home to, please. And blessings. Thank you so much, everybody.
Yeah, thank you all for joining into the conversation.
Thank you, everybody. And we have one of the youth with Family of Trees and the Youth Empower program, Michaela, that was on here. I'm not sure if she's still on, but she's going to be one of our 3 youth readers that's going to do a story time tomorrow evening at this time. And then we're going to celebrate the end of our event with a dance party. So I hope you guys all can join us. Thank you, everybody. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.